there's no question that Jim Jordan has something to hide, probably a lot to hide.
That is Liz Cheney on MSNBC torching fellow Republican Jim Jordan for his efforts to help Donald Trump subvert democracy.
If you go back and you look at, for example, the phone records, as well as, what he has said himself about his discussions and his conversations with Donald Trump on the 6th, the very significant role that he played in the lead up to that. He was clearly one of the masterminds in terms of helping to facilitate Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election, and of course refused to comply with the Select Committee subpoenas.
That's right. Ohio Republican Jim Jordan, who has handed out countless subpoenas to officials in the Biden administration, has refused to honor subpoenas for his documents and testimony connected to January 6th. And now Liz Cheney, in a new book and in television appearances, says Jordan could face criminal charges.
He has so many questions of his own to answer that people just need to go back and look at the record, look at how confused he has been when people have pushed him on what did you say to Donald Trump, when did you talk to him on the 6th, what was your role in all of this, did you make a request, for example, for pardons?
Do you think he has criminal exposure?
I think that he has a lot of questions he needs to answer. And I talk in the book about his testimony in front of the Rules Committee when we were working on the contempt resolution on Steve Bannon. And I just would urge people to go back and watch the video of that testimony. He cannot get a straight answer out about his communications with the president.
On January 6th, did you talk to the former president before, during, or after the attack on the Capitol?
Of course I've talked to the president.
All three?
Of course I've talked to the president. I've been clear about that. I talk to him all the time. Of course I talked to the president. I talked to him that day. I've been clear about that. I don't recall the number of times.
Was it before, during, or after the attack on the Capitol?
I talked to the president after the attack.
So not before or during?
Right.
Okay, and
I've been clear about that.
Actually, Jordan has not been clear about that, not at all. In a subsequent exchange in July on Fox News, Jordan got flustered by the same question.
Did you talk to the former president that day?
I've talked to the former president umpteen times, thousands. I mean not thousands times,
January
but countless times. I talk to the president. I never talk about what we talk about because I just don't think that's appropriate. Just like I don't talk about what happens in Republican conferences. So
sure.
I've talked to the president numerous times. I continue to talk to the president since he's left office.
On January 6th, Congressman.
Yes, I've talked to the president. I've talked to the president so many. I can't remember all the days I've talked to him, but I've certainly talked to the president.
A day later, after having some time to consider his rambling answer, watch what happened when Jordan was asked again.
Did you speak with President Trump on January 6th?
Yeah, I spoke with the president last week. I speak with the president all the time. I spoke with him on January 6th. I talk with President Trump all the time, and that's I don't think that's unusual. I would expect members of Congress to talk with the president of the United States when they're trying to get done the things they told the voters in their district to do. I'm actually kind of amazed sometimes that people keep asking this. But of course, I talk to the president all the time. I talked to him, like I said, I talked with him last week.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go. I spoke with him that day after. I think after. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know. I'd have to go back and. I don't know that when those conversations happened. But what I know is I spoke with him all the time.
A month later, after having more time to consider how to address the uncomfortable and potentially criminal issue, Jordan started using the phrase, "I don't recall." He told Politico, quote, "Look, I definitely spoke to the president that day. I don't recall. I know it was more than once. I just don't recall the times."
He's very clearly at the heart of what was an attempt to seize power and overturn an election.
In her book, Cheney also describes Jim Jordan's insulting and sexist comments during the insurrection itself. Nicole Wallace has the excerpts.
Jim Jordan approached me. Quote, "We need to get the ladies off the aisle," he said, and put out his hand. Quote, "Let me help you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Really? He and his co-conspirators in the White House and Congress had provoked this attack on the heart of American democracy. And now he thought I needed or wanted his help? I swatted his hand away. Quote, "Get away from me. You effing did this." As Jim scurried off, there was another announcement from the Capitol Police. "We have tear gas in the rotunda. Please be advised. There are masks under your seats. Please be prepared to don your gas masks."
Cheney goes into great detail in her book about the violence and threats on January the 6th, but Cheney notes the threats of violence have continued on matters connected to Jim Jordan. You may recall that several weeks ago, Jordan was a candidate to be Republican House Speaker. He couldn't get the votes needed, so Mike Johnson eventually stepped forward, got the votes, and became Speaker. However, before Jordan gave up, lawmakers and their spouses started getting calls from supporters of Jim Jordan, and the calls were, to put it mildly, heavy-handed.
When members were saying to Jim Jordan, look, we're getting threats of violence if we don't support you, Warren Davidson from Ohio, a Jim Jordan supporter, reportedly, responded and said, well, that's not Jim Jordan's fault, that's your fault. And think about, what that means, that acceptance of violence in our political system.
Jim Jordan has also been associated through the years with a controversial cover-up.
Ohio State wrestlers tell NBC News they were sexually abused by a team doctor. Several accusers believe it was known by Republican Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan.
It's a story that has long dogged the Ohio Republican. Allegations that Jordan, as an Ohio State coach, knew about sexual abuse and ignored it, and later as a congressman pleaded with former student athletes to cover it up. Jordan denies it.
If there had been any reports of abuse, I would have reported it.
Jordan's denials will now be tested under oath. As the headline says, Supreme Court lets lawsuits over team doctor sexual abuse proceed against Ohio State.
Since the Supreme Court ruling in the spring, the former wrestlers and their attorneys have resumed gathering evidence in their lawsuit. And the evidence so far establishes that the team doctor was a serial predator and that Ohio State University coaches and staff, including Jim Jordan, tried to hide it. There are now indications that Jordan will soon have to give testimony under oath in a deposition. In the meantime, former Ohio State wrestlers have repeatedly declared that Jordan's attempt to squelch the allegations intensified over the past few years.
Jim Jordan called me crying, groveling on the 4th of July, begging me to go against my brother. Begging me, crying for a half hour. He's a coward. He's a coward. He's not a leader. He's a coward. I'm a leader. I was captain of these guys. That's why I'm here. I would never abandon my team. He abandoned us.
It is a searing allegation that is back on path in a civil lawsuit. And whether it's the Ohio State cover-up or the January 6th insurrection that catches up with Jim Jordan, by many accounts, the Ohio conservative is in deep trouble. And as Liz Cheney points out, Jordan deserves no sympathy. Jordan has repeatedly shown himself to be a liar who is only worthy of contempt. By the way, the nastiness of House Republican Virginia Fox of North Carolina has now come back around to bite her.
Will suspend.
On the House floor, Fox just went silent.
Does the gentlewoman have a general leave request?
She had to be told by a staffer what to say. Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.